What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the You Know Ball podcast. I am your host, Troll Bro Dude. And before we get into our conversation with Trey Kerby about the Chicago Bulls, I would like to talk to you about our partner, Underdog Fantasy, the best and newest place to play fantasy sports and win big prizes. Now, recently, I've been doing a lot of You Know Ball private drafts on Underdog. They're the only place to offer nightly draft contests for the NBA. So what we do is we compete against each other in a classic 6-player snake draft, and whoever scores the most points walks away with the money at the end of the night. And today, if you use my promo code SLOP, that's SLOP, on Underdog, on their app or on their website, you will get a $100 deposit match bonus. It will support me. It will support the show. I would really appreciate if you were able to do that so we can keep this partnership going. And on top of that, if you're not into the fantasy draft contest every single night, they also offer their pick'em, which you can do with NBA player stats. You can go higher or lower on those. And they also offer NFL. So on Sundays and Thursdays, if you're feeling spicy, you can go and you can also choose on higher or lower on players' stats, running backs, wide receivers. I did a fantasy draft on Thanksgiving since there was no NBA stuff on. I walked away with some money at the end of the day. We had a lot of fun doing it, drafting against each other. And also right now, they're also offering higher or lower on World Cup. So if you're into soccer as well, football, whatever you want to call it, if you're into that, you can also play on that. So today, $100 deposit match bonus with the promo code SLOP. Use Underdog today. I would really, really appreciate it. Thanks. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the You Know Ball podcast. I am your host, Troll Bro Dude, and today I am very excited to have on from No Dunks, a fan of the slop himself, and a Bulls optimist, Trey Kerby. What's going on, Trey?
Hey, thanks so much for having me. It's been pure positivity mindset since 2021. 2020, a brutal year for everybody in all facets of life. So coming 2021, the Bulls were struggling. I said, we got to turn things around. I can't be so sad about my favorite team in all of sports spending so much time with this team. I can't be mad at them all the time. So maybe if we turn it to the positives, things will turn around. They did finish over 500 calendar year 2021. Huge accomplishment for Chicago. 2022 definitely tested the pure positivity mindset a little bit, but still feeling on the up and up,
Yeah, I mean, you guys are probably the weirdest team in the NBA, I would say, because Sam actually had a great analogy for this. Sam, obviously, when we thought of this idea, it was when I saw your clip like a week and a half ago, when you were basically like, as the positivity guy, the optimist Bulls fan, you were like, I don't know, like we have our pick is top 4 protected. Like maybe it's a generational draft. Things aren't really going the way that I thought. Maybe we could shift this thing in a different direction and kind of do a reset, see what's out there for trades and stuff like that. And Sam, you had a good analogy for this, or not an analogy, I'm sorry, just kind of like where the Bulls are at right now.
Well, because I feel like, because I've kind of gone back and forth on the Bulls, right? I feel like coming into the season, the book on the Bulls was they overperformed last year. Like, this is going to be a season of pain. Lonzo is injured. There is some other things. There's going to be a coming back down to earth. And they always have been sort of this sort of Damocles team since they got DeRozan, where any success is sort of minimized, and any and it's like, oh, you're going to pay for it later. You send out Wendell Carter, you owe these picks, and it's for a team that doesn't really have a ceiling. And I think it's interesting to see Bulls fans kind of be in that space, because as I actually dug into the numbers, in preparation for this, and looked at some of the on-off stuff and where they're at, the Bulls are actually, there's a lot of really positive signs, I think, for the Bulls, which is it's strange to say, but I think that there's no reason they can't be in the mix of that smush in the middle of the East of, the Sixers, the Cavs, and everyone, but it's just contingent on people being healthy. And I'm wondering what, as someone who's, inside the house, Trey, sort of seeing the Bulls night in, night out. Do you feel that optimism, or are you kind of being tied down a little bit more by some of the future and some of the negative, which I think is coming from outside the Bulls fan base? but maybe not necessarily from the best intentions,
I don't know that I would say optimism is the feeling around the Bulls right now. But I also don't think like straight up hardcore tanking pessimism is the thing, because when people suggest a tank, every Bulls fan is like, we just did that for 4 years. We just tried that for 4 years. And our highest draft pick ended up being Patrick Williams at the number 4 pick. And there's a lot of guys you would have rather had with Patrick Williams. Over the course of the 4 years from the Jimmy Butler trade to the Bulls last season, the Bulls had the fewest wins in the entire NBA, followed by the Knicks.
Wow.
The complaint from Bulls fans there is that the Bulls didn't tank hard enough, which fair enough. That's probably true, but they were winning 22 games in a season. Like,
sure.
That's a pretty serious tank. It's just that other teams were winning 15 and 17 games in a season. You can only be as bad as you can possibly be. So for me, I do think that the thing that's hard to figure out with the Bulls is that they're a team in the middle. And ever since somebody invented the phrase treadmill or
treadmill of mediocrity.
Mediocrity. Ever since that came about, everybody's like, well, but you can't be on there. You absolutely can't be on there. Some teams got to be on there. The Bulls have been on there for one lap, one overachieving season lap that ended pretty sad, no doubt about it. Like, had a spark when you started. Now you're just garbage. It was terrible the last third of the season for the Bulls last year. They got blown off the court in the playoffs. So people know that there isn't a very high ceiling now. But I look at this team and I see a 500 team. They might win 43 games. They might win 38 games, but they're basically a 500 team. We'll see if DeRozan can make some clutch shots like he did last year. I also look at like the future. And while they don't have a lot of young prospects, they have traded a couple of picks. I think it's a little overblown how poorly they're set up going forward. Like, you look at next year's.
It's not
draft.
the Lakers. It's
not the Lakers.
Yeah.
It's not the Lakers. Like, next year, as of right now, if the season ended today, they would lose their pick to the Magic, the number 9 pick. That sucks, but it's not losing the number 2 pick. It's not losing the number 1 pick. Also, they would be getting the Portland Trail Blazers pick, currently 19th. So you're moving down 10 spots and people are saying this is the worst thing in the world. I don't see it that way. I like having a team that's competitive, that's actually has a chance to win some games, can have some highlights, isn't the laughing stock of the league, and maybe they can figure out a way to retool rather than full-on rebuild.
Well, and that's kind of what I was getting at with this, the Bulls being this sort of Damocles team, because while you also have that, there's also the Bulls can go in and win against anyone. You could tell me the Bulls beat anyone in the league, and it's really not that weird. They beat the Celtics twice, and the Celtics are like,
and the Bucks, and they
It's
could.
Pretty funny because last year the Bulls beat up on the worst teams in the league, could not beat the best teams in the league. Everybody's like, that doesn't matter. Obviously, you're a fraudulent team. Guess what? Turned out they were a fraudulent team. This year, they're only beating good teams, losing to bad teams, and they're like, you got no ceiling. What? You got to either go 82-0 or 0-82, and that's the thing. There's middle ground here. The Bulls are stuck in the middle ground right now, but sometimes you got to be stuck in the middle ground and hope that, like, you can get a meeting with a free agent. Like, to me, it's embarrassing that the Bulls couldn't even get a courtesy meet and greet with Anthony Davis when he became a free agent. That dude's a Chicago guy. Everybody knew he was going to go back to the Lakers, but it'd be nice if he could stop by and give the hometown team a little bit of a glow up. But at that point in time, no chance. They were the biggest joke in the league. Now they're able to get a DeRozan meeting. They're able to sign him. They're able to sign Lonzo Ball just because they're looking like a competent organization going the right way.
Yeah, that's true. And also, I do just want to call back. First off, I do agree that, I mean, we all kind of had the same thought about the Bulls last year, which is we'll see in the playoffs. All of the players, we hadn't seen Zach in the playoffs yet. DeMar, we knew he had a bad history of underperforming in the playoffs. Vooch, just defensively, you're always going to have concerns about a guy like Vooch, deeper into the playoffs. You guys also ran into the best player in the world in the first round, which is, and also
probably the best team in the league last year.
Yeah,
honestly, probably the best team in the league last year.
Middleton was still healthy.
Well, it was
honestly,
like what
I would love to go back and listen to some vintage archive podcasts from after Game 2 of that series. The Bulls had shockingly won.
In
Milwaukee.
They
DeRozan
competed
had an
after
incredible
game
1. Middleton went down with an injury. People are like, oh. I know this might sound crazy, but could the Bulls pull an upset they got blown out by 30 in the very next game at home. It was obviously not true, but there were some bad takes flying around at that time, and I was loving it.
Yeah, no, I know personally that I had going into that series, I thought that was the easiest sweep of any matchup because the Bulls had their injury issues.
The Bucks certainly thought so. They lost to get that matchup to avoid the Nets, and
Yes.
but I think that's what. But sorry, you were saying something.
No, I was just gonna say I do remember the first 2 games of that series being weirdly competitive, and then the Bucks just kind of, oh right, we have Giannis, we have the best player in the world, we're the Bucks, like let's get our shit together basically. But I do just want to say that when this team was built, even if I had my questions about them in the playoffs, I really like them as a regular season team when everyone was healthy, like Sam was saying. When you had 2-point of attack defenders like Alex Caruso and Lonzo Ball, the team made a lot more sense because those guys are viable offensive players who are just going to be incredible on the defensive end and cover up for a lot of the mistakes that you're getting from DeMar and Vooch and those kind of guys. Things obviously have gone a little bit off the rails recently due to not only the Lonzo injury, which like it really fucking sucks. So we talk about it all the time. Like he was one of our favorite young players in the league. We thought he was going to end up being one of these like Danny Green level elite role players for years. Like that's really what we saw Lonzo when he signed with Chicago. And the thing you brought up that was interesting to me was like this idea of like a reset basically. So like not blowing it fully up, but like, I don't know, maybe keeping your team pretty competitive, still maybe making it to that play-in range. I forgot you guys had the Blazers lottery protected first, which makes things a little bit easier when you're losing your own pick, that you actually have another pick that is coming a few picks later. It's not quite as gloom and doom as it is made out to be. But if you look at the 2 teams that did this last year, it was the Pacers and the Blazers, and they have turned things around. And I even laughed at the Blazers. I was like, what are you doing? Like, Robert Covington, Norman Powell, you're basically getting nothing back. You're getting, and I like Josh Hart, but like, that's all you got for CJ McCollum. Like, I didn't understand the vision that the Blazers had, but the Bulls could kind of reposition themselves and put themselves into a position where maybe they still continue to compete this year, but they maybe get rid of a few guys that might not fit long-term around the idea of what they want to have. So my question to you is like, what would you consider the core of this team? And like, who would you be willing to like, I guess, not move off of if you were to do some sort of reset?
Well, I guess Zach and DeMar are the core to me, but I'm also not as tied to them as I would have been after last season.
Sure.
LaVine has come out of the gate pretty slow, recovering from injury. Him going down and having to play through a hurt knee last year was a huge impact as well. Like he was putting up Devin Booker numbers through the first half of the season.
He was incredible,
And then after that, it was like he just lost the burst to the rim, and it was kind of settling for a lot of outside jumpers, which is LaVine at his worst. Even if he is a good shooter, he needs to be able to get to the rim. He's a driver. So that fell apart. But I don't know. I don't think there are a lot of biters or a lot of interest in LaVine right now, having signed a $215 million deal and then coming out and looking like he's coming through a knee injury. It's been 20 games, though. So maybe as time goes on, maybe by next season, he's looking more attractive to other teams, because I think that's a young enough player with a lot of talent that could still have interest around the league. DeRozan is an interesting case because I do feel he's a little bit like a Julius Randle type of character, where he had one incredible season where the shot making was just at another level that it takes
Michael Jordan
MVP
2.0.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the guy was knocking Wilt Chamberlain off of all-time record list as a guard. He was doing it with all pump fakes. So, it's not a surprise that even if he's having a good season this year, if he's not hitting 80% in the clutch, the Bulls look worse. DeRozan's numbers look worse, but his deal is up after the end of next season. So there will be interest in him as well, I think, as a go-to ISO scorer. The guy's a bucket, absolutely. Can play make as well, though we don't see that quite enough with the Bulls. But everybody else, I don't think is locked in. Vucevic, his contract comes to a close at the end of this season. If anybody has any interest in him, fine by me. See you later. See what we can get for him. Patrick Williams was a guy I was willing to throw in a deal for Jeremy Grant at the trade deadline last season.
Would be
been
pretty
a smart
nice
move to do. Would have been nice to have Jeremy Grant there. That solves a lot of problems for the Bulls, especially now that he's shooting 40% from three. Kobe White, if there's any takers, sure. I don't think there's anybody outside of Zach and DeMar that are building blocks. I love Ayo Dosunmu. He's a great player. I love Alex Caruso, great player. But they're great players who help with the team. They're not guys that necessarily need to be there for the long term.
So that ties in to like one question I wanted to ask you as someone who watches the Bulls, because I don't catch a lot of Bulls games except when they're destroying my beautiful Celtics. So I think they're the greatest team in the world to me. Some might
like, oh no, this is
Bulls.
actually the '96 Bulls.
This is the greatest team I've ever seen.
I do think it's hilarious that I think the Bulls went 1-14 against the top four in the Eastern Conference last year, and the one win was against the Celtics, and it was like a crazy comeback win that spurred the Celtics on for the second half of the season. They were like, come on, guys. We got to turn this thing around if we're losing the Bulls like this.
The real look in the mirror moment.
Yeah,
I can't keep doing this, man.
Existential crisis.
We gotta win some games
Insane.
here. We gotta win some games here. But I was kind of like, I sort of, one of my things, like when we have team specific guests on, is I go through lineup data and I sort of look at things and see if anything pops out to me, like just that's interesting. And I'm glad you brought up Ayo, because I'm a huge fan. I
think he's
Ayo.
really good. Yeah.
I think he's really good, a great young player. And this is something I'm always hammering on the pod is, you can find these good young players and scrap heap guys as you go along. And if you have a team that's good enough, you can buoy yourself to the next level just by finding guys like Javonte Green, that it was just a throw-in in the, trade where Daniel Tice comes back. Everyone's like, oh, Tice is going to be, the main package. No, Javonte Green's having a great season for the Bulls. I'm interested because I saw that, the starters are losing their minutes pretty convincingly. But what was interesting to me is when I dug into that a little bit more, I saw that Caruso is like number one on the team in like plus minus by like a ton. Like he's like plus 88 on the season or something like that. He's not starting. And I'm like, okay, well, that's just a matter of the, he's not with the starters. But then I dug into it a little deeper and like played around with some of the layout data. There's like a staggering number. Like I think they're like literally doubling up opponents in like 300 minutes, which is not that much, but it's quite a bit when you swap in Caruso on the court and Dosunmu and Williams off, which I think is like very interesting considering that I would think somebody like Vooch or somebody who's more of like a stereotypical, empty stats guy, even DeRozan, back in the, or Zach, even all of those guys have had that charge levied against them. I thought it was really interesting that it's kind of come back to Dosunmu and Patrick Williams a little less, but it didn't really pass my eye test. So I wonder if you have any like thoughts on that, just as far as like maybe Caruso playing with the starters as like a fix for them in the interim, or do you think that Donovan should sort of stick to this, Dosunmu, Patrick Williams as like the fourth and fifth guys to go along with the Bulls' big three?
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't seem to be a perfect answer to this because Ayo to me is a little bit overtaxed as the starter. Like the playmaking isn't quite up to snuff as a starter. He's shooting like 32% from three, and you need shooting from the point guard position on a Bulls team where like outside of Levine, Vucevic is the best shooter out there. Patrick Williams, he'll make one of his two if he takes them that night. So Ayo, the fact that he's not playmaking, the fact that he's not shooting can be a problem for them in the half-court offense. You run into that problem a little bit with Caruso as well, since he's not necessarily a playmaker, knockdown shooter, though he's turned it on a little bit. But he really is the Draymond of that team. He plays a lot of minutes, I feel like, when he's playing alongside the other best athletes on the team. Oftentimes Levine, Drummond, Javonte Green, certainly. And that's the way the Bulls honestly can form a decent defense. And the only way they really can is by forcing turnovers and by getting active in the passing lanes. Ayo's great at it, and Caruso is obviously the best at it. He just brings a different energy to the team. He's started at times in the past. It's kind of a similar situation to Ayo, where he's just maybe a little overtaxed as the starter. Goran Dragic is another guy I would be interested to see get a start just because he's a shooter as well. It's been pretty good off the bench, but I don't know. Their bench has been solid so far. They're just obviously missing a starting point guard who knocks down threes and pushes the pace.
He was just such a good fit. Like
exactly.
It was crazy.
Also the number 4 option in your starting lineup shouldn't be that big of an impact.
Yeah, it shouldn't totally crash.
It all falls apart that quickly.
Sure.
But you can see the vision, and at the start of last season, in certain games this season, when the Bulls are forcing turnovers and moving the ball and hitting an outside shot, they actually look decent.
Well, this front office, first off, didn't love the Vooch trade when it happened. I think that it's aged poorly quicker than I expected. I think that when it was made, I understood the thought process behind it, exactly what you said, trying to get DeMar in, trying to get guys to make this team competitive, convince Zach to stay around, because Zach was really the last guy that you had left that was this piece from the Jimmy Butler trade, and he was making all-star teams and all of that. Between the injuries and also the fact that like Wendell Carter just became really good and Franz Wagner might end up being, if not the best player from that draft, certainly like a top 3 player from that draft, which is pretty crazy. Like I liked Franz as a role player coming out of college, but I never envisioned that, which is why I think that trade kind of aged pretty poorly. But like the thing that this front office really seems to get is that thing you talked about with putting athletes around these guys, where like, if you look at their recent draft history, not all of it is perfect. Io is obviously a great pick for where he went. Patrick Williams has not panned out yet. He's still young. He's still 21. But it definitely seems like they have the idea of the right pieces to put around this core. But I guess the whole thing is like, is it worth it to put all of your resources into this now that you have sustained these injuries? And one thought I had, and I know that this has been brought up, I think you might have even brought it up in the clip that you guys had posted on social, which was, if the Lakers did call and they were just like, hey, because the rumor has been Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. Obviously, we all want to throw up from having to talk about this for 4 months now. It's basically become.
I want more of it. I want to keep talking about it. Actually, I want more Miles Turner, more Buddy Hield. They're definitely going to want it more after last night. I feel like the Lakers got to see firsthand the devastating power of Buddy Hield and Miles Turner.
I did think it was a nice twist to the saga, though, when Miles Turner himself was like, yeah, they should definitely trade for me. That was awesome, man. That was cool. You never hear a player chime in on their own trade rumors. That was sick.
In a way, it was a part of slop history. We've never seen a player on another team say, yeah, you should trade for me. Like,
how good I would be on your team.
Yeah. You could, me and Anthony Davis and LeBron kicking out. Like, I actually, if I were to make I'm kind of in the position that, like, I know the Lakers have played a little bit better recently, but I'm not falling for that. Like, I would just.
Oh, really? You don't think they've
I don't think them beating the Spurs. Them beating the Spurs
beat a team
twice.
Other than the Spurs.
The team that their own coach said, hey, I wouldn't bet on us to win the finals. Maybe the greatest coach of all time going on there. But personally, if I were the Lakers, I would just sit on this and see what I can get towards the trade deadline. Maybe make moves on the margins and try to make the plan. I'm definitely not giving up my 27 and 29 pick for this team until I see Anthony Davis and LeBron James healthy for a month straight. Like, I'm not doing it. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. But I do think that that's something that they are going to consider. And it looks like, I don't know if it's leverage or if this is really what they want to do, which is that they are asking around the league and they're seeing what they can get either for one of these picks or 2 of these picks. So what if they called the Bulls and they said, I might be going on something that I heard, and I can't say if this is true or not, but if they called and they said, we not only want Vooch, who you said you're like, I'm fine moving on from Vooch, he doesn't really make sense with the team anyway. If they wanted Vooch, DeMar, and Caruso for Russell Westbrook and those 2 picks, would you be open to that, or would you say that's a bridge too far?
I'm not hanging up the phone.
Okay.
At the very least, I'm not hanging up the phone because, I mean, Vooch, Caruso, and DeMar, that sounds like a lot.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
To get
we just talked about how good Caruso is, and we know how good DeMar is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I think that I don't know. That seems like the Bulls are giving up a little bit too much.
Sure.
I would want to keep Caruso probably to make it fair. I'm just doing anything to get Vooch out of here at this point. But
so you would be like, how Kobe White
like,
interest you? An expiring Kobe White?
Sure, yeah, Kobe White, toss him in. Kobe White would be great next to LeBron. LeBron honestly would be great for Kobe White. It'd be the J.R. Smith era of his career.
He loves those guys.
Exactly. He's like, oh, you're gonna shoot it every time you touch it. I love that.
If you want to hold on to Caruso, just send me as the negotiator. I'll remind the Lakers how expensive his contract is, and they will quickly lose interest.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you could just go to them and be like, look, we have Alex Caruso, but we have this other young player, Kobe White, just like you wanted to pay Talen Horton-Tucker instead of Alex Caruso. Kobe White could be anything. He could even be Alex Caruso.
How much we want.
I speaking of Kobe White and the development and drafting and all that stuff, obviously we talked about Wendell Carter for a second. Lauri Markkanen is another guy who's having a little bit of a breakout year with the Jazz. Totally out of left field. We were actually just talking about this last night on the stream, and Parm, who was co-hosting the stream with me, was talking about how he watched Eurobasket, and he was basically saying that he's assuming that the Jazz watched Lauri in Eurobasket, and they were like, oh, we should just do what they do with Lauri Markkanen, and he looks like a superstar when he is in the perfect situation where, I don't know how much of this is real, how much of this is just kind of context and the role that he's currently in. But from a Bulls perspective, obviously, it never really worked out with Lauri. He flashed early. We saw some of these things when he was young, but like I can't even lie. I was not a Lauri Markkanen guy. Every time that we played the Bulls or the Cavs when he was on them, I was like, I just don't know what you do with a 4 who can't play defense. I just was not in on this dude. But now that he's having a little bit of a breakout, obviously we brought up Wendell Carter, who when healthy which was another unfortunate thing for him in Chicago, when healthy has shined a little bit with the Magic as like a really good young center. With the Patrick Williams thing, because I've also never really seen it with Patrick Williams, but are you concerned with kind of what I'm concerned with the Sixers, which is that like we never invest in the development of our young players. We kind of just go, hey, you figure it out. And the self-starters are the ones who can kind of figure it out. But guys that really need like the perfect role for them or the perfect context for them never really figure it out on the Bulls. Are you worried about that? Or do you think that this is just kind of like a individual basis with these guys and they kind of found the perfect fits for their teams that they're currently on?
Oh no, super, super worried about it because Markkanen balling right now. Wendell Carter Jr. balling right now. Even Luke Cornett is balling right now. Let's a bridge too far. Are you kidding me? Honestly, it's ridiculous that Luke Cornett is like running up and down the court, catching alley-oops. He's throwing Stroman flips. The guy's hitting threes. Like the Celtics barely missed Robert Williams because of Luke Cornett. That's an insult. That's an insult to the Chicago Bulls.
That's also an insult to Sam's favorite player.
That's crazy to me. But I do think it's a concern. It's like you look at all of these guys, and they're all wings or something like a big guy with a little bit of stretch to him, and all they end up doing on the Bulls is pick and pop or go stand in the corner. Those are the only ideas they have for their big guy to score, and it's exactly what's happened to Vucevic as well. And to me, that puts a little bit of questions in my mind about how Billy Donovan is using these guys, because to me, when I look at the Bulls and when I look at Billy Donovan's tenure in the NBA, he's an incredible coach if you're a guard, because you get to do whatever you want if you're a guard. Russell Westbrook's coach, when he won MVP, it was Billy Donovan. Russell Westbrook had the highest usage rate of all time. He's like, Billy Donovan tells his guards, you go out there, you get buckets, and you pass. If you see a big guy and there's nobody around him, feel free. But you don't have to force it, Just get it up on the rim if you can. It's crazy to me. It seems like the only plan is let's see if our guards can make something happen.
Well, the good news is that you guys just extended him for 4 years today.
A little secret. No, not today. Not today. Over the summer.
Wait, what?
Summer.
Oh, yeah, you missed that.
They extended him over the summer. Didn't tell anybody until today.
Are you serious?
That's always a good sign.
Why? Why would you not tell anybody? That's
Little
crazy.
secret for
It's a little
Chicago.
secret Billy.
I'm gonna try that with my girlfriend. Babe, why have you not posted me on Instagram? It's just a little secret I'm keeping, like it's fine. Don't worry about it. We'll soft launch in November. It's fine. It's gonna be great.
Maybe it got caught in somebody's like Outlook Express outbox. They're like, that didn't send yet?
Shams is like,
people months ago.
why is this dated August?
Is this real? Do you mean to send this? Yeah, I got lost.
It would be really funny
around.
It'd be really funny if Billy was just like, so I signed that, right? Like nobody's talking about it. Like,
why don't you want to go public with me? Are you embarrassed of me?
Writing to confirm you got the contract. DocuSigned in August.
It just turns into like a Curb or Seinfeld thing where he's like, so that extension, right? Yeah, he's just trying to get everyone to like admit that he had signed the extension.
To be forever, right? You know,
it happened.
Say it, AK. Say it. Say the words.
Yeah, say the word. Let me kind of one of my roles on here, Trey, is contrarian. Everybody loves a contrarian. Everybody loves a guy who's doing it.
Devil's advocate.
Yeah. So let me make a contrarian case for the Bulls and tell me how much you buy it. So where I start and end with the Bulls, because I'm vehemently against teams blowing up. I feel like it doesn't work that often. You tear something down. If you're a team that wins games, even treadmill of mediocrity games, I think that there is a lot of value in having a team, having a core, and building guys within this. I think that what we're talking about with guys not developing can be a byproduct of a situation in flux when you're not winning games. The guys don't have a role. Guys don't have anything that they are working on. Sorry, that's a cat in the corner. But so with the Bulls in this instance, they clearly had a plan, and they have been quietly one of the most injured teams in the NBA over that thing. You have Zach missing games, as we alluded to. The thing that makes all of this go, just in terms from a fit perspective, is Lonzo Ball, who is just gone, but will be returning soon. And you have had some of these guys on the fringes pop, and some of these signings have seemed to have worked out a little bit. Goran Dragic, juvenated. Goran Dragic, I'm not even going to say rejuvenated, because this is a continual juvenation coming off of his Miami stint. You have Javonte Green. You have all of this stuff. Is there a chance that...
Hold on. You left out Sixers fan favorite Andre Drummond. I just need to throw that.
There we go.
I told every Bulls fan I know, I was like, you just got the best backup center in the NBA. I don't know if he's done that for them this year, but I can tell you when he was
36 minutes, career high.
Are
you kidding me? This guy's one of the best rebounders ever, doing his best rebounding ever.
Come on.
He's near beefing. He's coming off the bench, so prorated beef.
So let's say the Bulls are healthy come playoff time. Like, we haven't seen that. Like, what they won that game, like you alluded to at the beginning. They played the Bucks tough. I mean, Chris Middleton got hurt, and then Giannis turned it on. But I honestly sort of believe this is the great thing about being devil's advocate. I can talk myself into it. I really think the Bulls have more of a chance in a first round matchup than a lot of people are giving them credit for, especially if they end up not playing the Celtics or the Bucks.
That was actually going to be my last question, was what team do you think they could compete with if everyone gets healthy, if everything rights the ship? Let's just say they don't make any major moves. Let's just say this is the core. They get to the play-in. They win that 7-8 seed. Obviously, you have the Bucks and the Celtics at the top right now, but is there a team that you could see them stealing 2 games from, is my point. Because I think that could make it a little bit worth it. We're like, hey, look, we're still showing progress. We're getting to the playoffs. We still have these young guys, we can reconvene in the summer, all that. But kind of going off Sam's point, like, who would be that team? And like, do you buy Sam's pitch?
Man, this is crazy. This is crazy how this worked out, because now I have to devil's advocate myself. I'm so thinking of reasons why the Bulls are supposed to be good.
Yeah. 7-dimensional chess here.
Yeah, it's wild stuff. Twisted. I think only Miami amongst contenders, and I'm throwing Miami in the contenders mix because they were the 1 seed last year. Almost went to the finals, but
sure.
for whatever reason, the Bulls are competitive against the Celtics. in the regular season. I don't necessarily think that would be the case come playoff time. I think perhaps the Celtics look at the Bulls on the schedule and say, "Oh, we got this one." Not these Bulls. I don't think that the Bulls would have a chance in the actual playoffs. Giannis, no chance. You know, the Bulls did beat the Bucks in Milwaukee last year for the first time since 2017. Got the first regular season win in Milwaukee since 2017 this year. So maybe they could knock them off. No chance. Philadelphia 76ers, Joel Embiid has never lost to the Chicago Bulls.
There you go. Bulls kid, yeah.
So I don't think that one's going to happen.
Yeah.
And finally, the Heat, I just think they can be so stinky in the half court.
Sure.
And the Bulls can be so explosive offensively that they could perhaps outscore them. It just comes down to the fact that if you've got a really big guy on the inside, or you can score a lot on the inside, you're probably going to beat Chicago.
I think that's fair. Sam, if you have any other questions for Trey.
I have one last before we let Trey get out of here. So Trey, we have our hogs here at Ball, our slot piggies that are, sort of are very rude to me as a new co-host because I'm a Celtics fan. So back from your guys' days as starters, I was a huge starters fan back in the day. You had a disciplined tweet of the week, Army. You had, Dr. Gorilla Farts, Big Ragadaga, Mr. and Mrs. Wooblio Balls. How can we curate that sort of discipline in our hogs? Because right now our ranks are running wild, and I need anything I can to sort of get them in sort of the formation that Lee had them, your guys in, and I'm so jealous, and I'm all out of ideas here.
You got to start assigning ranks. First and foremost, you need a captain. You need a slop captain. You absolutely need one, because as soon as one person is put on that piggy pedestal, the rest of those hoggers will just fall right in line.
All right. I hope the Patriot Hogs are hearing this. If you want to try out for captain, we will be holding tryouts. So
love this idea.
It is on here.
We need to get the sickos more involved. Is the answer here? Yeah.
Yes. But in all seriousness, we really appreciate you coming by, Trey. I'm actually a huge fan. I was trying to play it cool the whole time, but I'm just gonna say that I watch starters every day as a young lad, so I really appreciate you making the time for us.
Thanks y'all for having me. I love listening.
Thanks. I appreciate it, Trey. We really appreciate your time, and hopefully next time we talk, your Bulls are in a little bit better of a situation.
Or hopefully they're slopping it up, honestly. Like,
or
it could be a trade target team here. I'd be down to hop on, the beginning of February, something like that. December 15th coming up in no time. That's the real ringing of the dinner bell for us.
Oh, yeah. That's great. All right. Peace, bud. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
thank you.
All
right. I didn't want to get Trey assassinated, but the Bulls will be defeating the Toronto Raptors in the first round. I always put our guests' safety first and foremost. I was not going to call down. Call down the forces of Gehenna on him.
I appreciate that.
Say it right now. I will say it right now. Well, Bulls defeating the Raptors in the play-in. So.
And we especially have to worry about him because he co-hosts a podcast with a Raptors fan. So
right, exactly. Tass could organize.
Actually, two. Skeets is a Raptors fan too.
Skeets is Raptors. I forgot about that. Oh boy.
Prayers up for Trey if they ever hear this. So
yeah.
All right.
We've done our best to protect him.
Okay, so we now are moving on to I'm just going to give my brief thoughts on the Sixers real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I have my name is Shake Milton for MVP. Love the way the team's been playing recently. I really don't have it. You said 10-6 when Harden went down, and I believe I said 8-9 was in the, or 8-8. I can't remember. It was 7-9. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
And so far since then, they are 8-3 in those games. So all they have to do is go 2-3 in these next few games, and the optimist Sixers fan on the podcast,
number one Sixers fan,
yeah.
The contrarian himself.
Oh yeah, and don't worry about it. Baby. And don't worry about it. I'm sure Doc will figure out how to fit all the pieces when all the the jigsaw mastermind, Doc Rivers, will figure out the whatever. It's been fun. Yeah. It is really funny because you always talk about the stuff that we just talked about, like giving fans something to look forward to. And I've had more fun watching the Sixers with no expectations for a week than I have in like probably since we first got Jimmy Butler. Like that's how much fun it can be when there are these games without any expectations, when you're just looking for wins, like we talked about, where like Shake Milton has a revitalization. D'Anthony Melton looks amazing. Tobias Harris is actually looking like a good NBA player again. So all positive vibes for the Sixers right now. I can't really, this pod really thrives when I'm super negative on the Sixers. So I'll just leave it at things are great. Watch the streams with us. We're going on playback. We're doing it. Me and Parm are doing them once a week. I did one for the Hawks last night. Next week, I'll be doing the Lakers. The week after, I'll be doing the Warriors. So let's get it.
Well, and I think, I hope that you guys get more Hawks streams, because I think a lot of the piggies are tuning in to see if you will Bud Dwyer, if you will have a Bud Dwyer on stream. There's another Hawks thing. So just to let everyone know, I hate to kind of, sort of take the fun out of it, but I have taken all of Trill's firearms away from him. So that will not be happening, because I was concerned about some of the things he said on the podcast last time. So we have taken all necessary precautions. Do not worry.
Thank you.
For my co-host, will never let harm come to him.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, that was definitely a concern. If you watch the stream, the first stream, they played the Hawks and I was throwing up all over myself. We looked like shit. I was deep in dog shit. I was having existential crisis mode. Last night was fantastic. Although if you watch the stream down until the last shot with Trae Young, where he was going basically the full court, I was like hyperventilating, but they pulled off the win. That's all that matters. Embiid's back. Team's looking great. So we're doing well. We're getting over our PTSD from the Hawks series, and we're moving on. So let's talk a little bit about the one piece of slop that has dropped this week, which is former Celtic Kemba Walker signing with the Dallas Mavericks yesterday.
Eat shit, Nick Nurse. He's beating your curse, you demon. That's right. Nick Nurse, personally responsible for the end of Kemba Walker's career up until this point. Yeah. He will not see heaven. Nick Nurse is a demon. He's one of the 77. He's either Belial, Azariel, Beelzebub. I don't know which of them he is, but he is a demon. What else would you call a man that has the 30th ranked half-court defense? Offense, sorry. That's a man who hates his fans and they would die for him. Something demonic is going on there.
It is. There's definitely some weird shit. Like I think that, and look, we say this, we love and we respect Zach, but the man needs help. The man is making podcasts in November talking about the Raptors being so what was the title of it? It was like the sleeping giant of the Eastern Conference.
Oh, God, he's so shameless, man. They must have like one of his kids, right? At like an undisclosed location. Like he's watching one of his children grow up with like a photo with today's newspaper every day is how that's happening.
Nick Nurse is on the phone. He's like, yeah, do the bit about the Croatian soccer team and Canada and them, in the World Cup.
You love juniors. That's why you love going to Toronto. You make that trip every year, don't you, Zach? Remember. Scotty Barnes is a 10-time All-Star. 10-time All-Star. Scotty Barnes. It's for certain. It's for certain.
You wouldn't trade him for Kevin Durant.
You would not. You wouldn't do it. You wouldn't do it at all.
I wouldn't do it, folks.
That's this is how bad Nets fans are down. My one friend was so indoctrinated by that I was trying to talk him through the Portland deal we talked about last week, and he said, "Nah, I'd rather have Scotty Barnes." And I'm like, "Really? Very interesting."
Not Scotty Barnes.
Well, and Kerry Trent Jr. and the Raptors picks, and I'm like, well, the Blazers picks are going to be better. They're going to be old. Like I don't like
the Blazers picks will be better, and you're getting a shot on two prospects like Gary Trent Jr. Whatever. Like I don't know. I'm not a Gary Trent Jr. guy. Anthony Simons and Sharp at least both have potential to be like all-stars. I don't know. Like, are we guaranteed? Like, I don't know. Go look up Thad Young's per 36 numbers from his first 2 seasons and compare them to Scotty Barnes. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, leave it there.
Yeah. So
but Jonathan just said in chat that Zach looks a little bit like Bizarro Trudeau. I would argue that Trudeau looks like a Bizarro Zach. So,
yes.
Yeah. And
exactly.
That's where I'm going to leave that joke. You're trying to get me in trouble, and we're going to move on and talk about the Toronto Raptors.
Exactly. Zach would never do brown face.
No.
Yes, I also like the Portland package better than Toronto.
Exactly.
But let's talk a little bit about Kemba, because before the season, it's funny we had Trey on because I had the Bulls as my number 1 disaster rankings team due to the circumstances that we talked about. All the injuries, the little bit of a hot year last year, the regression, plus the fact that they don't have their own pick. Well, the Mavericks are in kind of a similar situation. They just happen to have one of the best players in the world. So they go out and they sign Kemba. Do you think this is going to matter at all? Is my question.
Not remotely. No, not remotely. I mean, they fucked their team up. They cheaped that. The Jalen Brunson thing. I don't like Jalen. Don't like this strong. I think Jalen Brunson is a totally fine player. I think it was a bit rich, the contract he got, whatever, not the end of the world. But it was very clear to me that, they needed him. Still, they just don't have talent. You know what I'm saying? There's just no fucking talent. Maxi Kleber's what? Undrafted?
Yeah. I mean, most of their team are undrafted and second round guys, which it's not to say that that's not necessarily a bad thing, because they're all NBA players. They don't draft well, is what you're saying.
But the thing is it is a bad thing, because you don't have any starter talent. You just have guys who, when they become starters, it's that's amazing. Good job. Like Dorian Finney-Smith, awesome. That's wonderful. You know what I'm saying? And everyone else on the team is a fucking mistake. Is Spencer Dinwiddie or Tim Hardaway Jr. I don't mean an existential mistake. I mean from a contract perspective, obviously. Right. But but that's the thing, is where they've spent themselves into this quarter. They made a bad bet on Porzingis and then sold too soon on it. That's kind of to get into what we were talking about with Trey. I don't really think the Bulls should get off of the team they have right now. See it through. Because this is what happens when you try to immediately tinker with it and fix things, is you make shit worse. Who they could probably use right now is Kristaps Porzingis, the Washington version, the healthy version.
Well, he wasn't healthy for them is an important.
So why trade him?
Because he could he was never available. Also, didn't get along with Luka. And they made it to the Western Conference Finals. We do have to look, I know you can say it's a fraud Western Conference Finals and the Suns collapsed and all that stuff. And it's very similar to the Hawks one, to be honest.
Right.
It's very
exactly.
But I would kill for the Sixers to get to a conference finals. We talk about just wanting to compete. I would die to get there. But I also understand that our team doesn't have the best young player since LeBron James.
I'm also going to say that I do not think you should inform your decision-making based on what distressed Sixers fans want. It's not a good way to do business. Let me just put it that way.
Congrats. You got to the conference finals and then immediately you were horrible.
Right. I don't know. I just don't think, look, they're trying to plug holes. I think the spirit of it is the only way that they can get better, is taking swings on guys. I just don't. I love Kemba. Average Celtic, but a really good guy. And I would like it to work out for him.
He's not an average Celtic. He made the All-Star team. That's something.
Yeah. All right. It was a little fugazi, but in my mind. But I did really like Kemba as a guy. He was playing on one leg. He's the reason we lost the conference finals. But it wasn't his fault. It was the demon Nick Nurse did that to him by playing him in the All-Star game 40, whatever. It really was 38 minutes. It was insane for an All-Star game. Played injured guy 38 minutes.
Thibs Bulls, but in the All-Star game.
But anyway, long story short, but I think they should be using that on guys like Sam Hauser or guys or Max Struses or young guys who can pop. not trying to capture lightning in a bottle with guys who have been in the league and have been shown to not really be able to play anymore. I think they should be trying to find their own undrafted guys with that end of the roster turn. You're going to get higher outcomes than you are trying to, go back to guys like Kemba, who are, I think a little cooked. And nothing wrong with that. He had a great career, but it just is what it is. So
that is true. The hope for this is that he can have what Derrick Rose had with the Knicks a few years ago, where when he went to Detroit, like he can have a little bit of a resurgence. He can be a regular season guy that comes off the bench that maybe does half of what you had Jalen Brunson do before you let him walk in didn't let him walk. He just left in free agency. But I guess my thing with the Mets, to me, it's a low risk, medium reward move where I think that it could be fine. You find a bench guard that can maybe sustain some offense when Luka goes to the bench. I think that it might be somewhat workable. I don't really think he's playable with Luka, so I don't think you're going to see him necessarily in the playoffs. But I also think that he can still be a spot-up shooter. He can create he's not a primary anymore, but he can be maybe a little bit of a secondary guy. And you just hope that he doesn't absolutely die on defense, which was his problem last year and with the Celtics after the knee injury. And you kind of go from there. But it does reek of desperation a little bit.
Well, so, and I guess my answer to that question would be, like, with Spencer Dinwiddie on the roster, are you really hurting for those minutes to get filled?
Not necessarily, but I've watched enough Mavs games this year to go, they need something. Because I personally, if it were up to me, and because I would look at it like, look, we're not winning the finals this year. Like, I'm not gonna, unless we trade for Anthony Davis in the next month, which, by the way, isn't fucking happening anymore. Unless we do something like that, and I actually thought that they were the number one Anthony Davis team that made sense to me. But unless there's something like that before the trade deadline, we're done. We're not we're probably not even going to get out of the first round. And if we do, it's because Luka absolutely dragged us again.
Yeah.
So I would look at it like, I would probably just be like, maybe Jaden Hardy isn't ready, but fuck it. We drafted him in the second round.
Yeah.
I thought he was a first round prospect. He's been doing well in the G League. Maybe we can see what we can get out of this guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stuff like that. Internal development. Like, look, the one guy you didn't give up on, Josh Green, is actually like
pretty good.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you just do that. They just don't. They just have no patience. They're a franchise who is defined by a lack of patience. And I think
the Porzingis trade was that.
Yep. And I think that's what's hurting them. And I think that's why Luka Doncic is going to be a Knick in 4 years. So.
Oh God! Please don't give Knicks fans hope.
You are going to be so happy when you get to post this on TikTok in the United States of China's internet here in 4 years. President Xi, we welcome you. We just ask that you leave our TikTok access. We need that to grow the podcast. We will be a state-owned podcast. I think we need to start positioning ourselves now to be the state's primary podcast. We're head-to-head with Dunked On. I don't think Zach will give us much trouble, but we are going to need to defeat Dunked On. So
true.
We need to start kissing ass and making favors right now. So.
Well, G, if you're watching, Nate has said bad things about you on his podcast, and we've never said anything bad about China on You Know Ball.
No,
so
the glorious, your glorious rail plan, Chairman G, is that it's amazing.
Brilliant. It's
really great. So
we respect you.
We respect you, but the Mavericks suck. I think they're a garbage franchise, and they've done a very bad job.
Treat women poorly. They
They hired a crypto guy to run their front office and piss Luke off for 2 years.
Try to trade Jalen Brunson for Matisse Thybulle, which in retrospect, at least they would have got something. But
yeah, that's true. Who knows? Matisse might be the number one guy. That's the only thing I've gotten wrong about my Sixers resurgence. Is I said Matisse would be the one.
He actually played his best game of the season last night. So
there we go.
He played really well last night. So
let's go, Matisse.
So
I believe in you.
If you are watching this, Dallas Mavericks, Matisse Thybulle is not available for trade unless you blow us away with an offer. So
yeah, like Dorian Finney-Smith for Matisse is what I've heard the offer is. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe if they throw in a first, maybe. My Thibault for Reggie Bullock trade is looking like a real lose-lose for both teams right now. So he's been horrible.
Better situation. Is he a movement shooter? I don't watch a lot of Reggie Bullock. Can he
more of a standstill guy? I mean, he's Danny Green basically, but not old Danny Green, not young Danny Green.
Yeah.
But
so and you guys have Ferk, so you don't need a movement shooter anyway.
We have a superstar. Yeah, exactly. We have Steph Curry mixed with Luka Doncic.
Right.
So last thing I want to say, and Hugo brought up this point when after that horrible loss that the Mavericks had, and I'm fine with the Kemba signing. I really don't love the process because I would prefer to try to maybe develop a guy or find someone around, find a Dennis Smith Jr. even a guy that they drafted who's now playing real minutes for the Charlotte Hornets. Do something like that. I would probably prefer that. But at the same time, I think Kemba will be whatever. He'll probably be able to play spot minutes for them. He might help some of the ball handling and shooting issues. We'll see. Hugo basically saw the end of that Raptors game when they were just completely trapping Luka. He was able to, get it out, and they were doing 4-on-3s. And his teammates, and that was kind of the idea behind trading for Ben Simmons, even when.
Oh God, that just sounds like the grossest game. I'm trying to picture that.
It was so bad.
Yeah,
it was the worst game. Also the Raptors without Pascal Siakam, so they didn't even have someone who can create really. It was like OG Anunoby post-ups versus Nick Nurse trying to physically destroy Luka Doncic with traps, and it was really bad. And so he, basically when he was getting trapped, they didn't have anyone who could take advantage of those 4-on-3 situations. And this is another example of if they literally just got DeAnthony Melton instead of Christian Wood, and I think Christian Wood has a lot of offensive talent, but they need to start thinking about guys who fit kind of similar to how the team worked last year when the threes were falling, where they're defensive guys who can survive offensively because Luke is such this singular offensive talent that can lift up all the talent around him. That I think that they need to start looking for those kind of guys, the Bruce Browns, the DeAnthony Meltons, the guys who were able to capably attack a 4-on-3, play make out of the short roll, shoot, and also defend. Those are the kind of guys that they should be going after, not Kemba Walker. Really, that's I know it's a low risk move. He's a veterans minimum guy. If it doesn't work out, you can trade him. But it's still I don't know. I think that they should be trying to develop and find guys who are more like that fit better with Luka.
Yeah. Well, and just you can, and you know what? Better yet, you could develop those guys. They're just unsigned guys. The league is so deep right now.
Crazy.
There are guys in the G League who can play in the league tomorrow. I believe that wholeheartedly.
We cut Isaiah Joe and Charles Bassey, who have had good NBA games this year, and they're 21 and 22, or 23. They're playable. There are guys you can find that are, and maybe if you luck into that, then you can get a guy who is with you for the long term instead of find a Bruce Brown. The Nets found Bruce Brown from Detroit. I definitely don't like signing JaVale McGee and trading for Christian Wood. I just
can you imagine the team the Miami Heat would have if they had drafted
oh my God,
Luka Doncic? If you just swapped the Heat and the Mavericks front offices, how different the that would be right now. They would have won the title by now, I feel like.
Luka plus rat mode is a title. Yeah.
Well, and I more just mean the way that they just find guys. You know what I'm saying? They understand. You're in a market with no state tax. Go after signings, leverage guys. Yeah, leverage the picks. Do what you need to do there. I hate them with the passion of 1,000 suns, but they really do understand how to build around stars, which is the important thing. And the Mavericks have fucked it up so beautifully. I think the conference finals is purely a result of Luka's greatness, and it has nothing to do with anything the team did, which is insane. I honestly believe that. That you could have just NBA 2K sim the front office part, and it would have been probably a better result than what has happened with the Mavericks after drafting Luka Doncic. So.
I don't disagree.
I just can't believe the balls on them to call him out for like being like fat and coming into camp. And it's like, okay, you know what? You get to do that when you give him any teammate and you don't tell his only good teammate, yeah, we don't, we think you love it here. We think you love it so much. They did the Donald Trump negotiating tactics. You love us, don't you, Jalen? You don't. They have your dad, but you know what we have? We have finance building. JFK got killed here. He's a loser. Couldn't beat the CIA. Couldn't. Wife had to hold his head together. What a chump.
Hello, Tim McMahon. Yeah, Luka Doncic is drinking sweet tea by the gallon.
Mark Stein was very nasty to me. Said he broke the story. Sorry, loser. 4 hours later, I'm the one breaking it. Trump fighting with Mark Stein sounds amazing. So.
Tell Luka he's going to get diabetes.
Luka
his foot off.
Luka looked disgusting at a hookah bar, nipples protruding. This new shirt. Oh God!
All right.
Anyway, so, yeah, even Miami Heat even do fat shaming better. So it's
true. Yeah, it's a good point. No. Yeah, they keep it internal with their fat shaming. They don't go. They don't leak to the press.
Just another way the Miami Heat have defeated the Dallas Mavericks. I hate the Miami Heat. They're an evil franchise, but God, they have shown up to Dallas Mavericks time and time again.
You gotta give them credit. Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's get into your little rant here that you want. Your little propaganda that will be probably tuned out by half of the people that listen to this podcast. So
we forgot to ask Trey. I wanted to ask Trey this question, but it's probably for the best if we want to continue to have a good guest. So let's say, you have Steph Curry's case, right? For MVP. You have Jayson Tatum's case. Okay. Sure, all of the numbers say Steph Curry is having a better season than Jayson Tatum, and Jayson Tatum has better teammates and all this other irrelevant bullshit to the MVP case. You know, they're trying to steal your focus, okay? What I want to remind you of is what the real heart of the MVP case is, okay? Is it best player on a best team? Is it the guy who does the most for his team? It's the most important. Is it the guy the team would be the worst off if you removed him from the team and put a replacement level player in? No, that is not true. The MVP conversation is defined by how would 5 of this player cloned playing 5 of another player cloned work out, and who would be the best at it. Okay. Also, Giannis isn't allowed to participate in this.
I was going to say, hold on. Actually, good question.
Yeah.
I actually think if you put all the players, Tatum might be the best guy in that conversation just because of the shooting.
Giannis has the Giannis has that, because this is the argument I was going to make about Curry versus Tatum, is that, like, you do need to build your team, even if it is not very much, and even if he's still very much the one driving the boat and defining the greatness, you still do need to account for Steph Curry on your team in some way. You do need to have a Draymond Green or someone who is capable of, sort of accounting for his defense in a little bit. I know everyone says Steph Curry's a good defender. He is not that good. He is better. He's turned himself into a good steals guy. He understands a lot of the things. He's a very heady defender. He's not a very good defender. Jayson Tatum is totally irrelevant to any of those conversations. You put Jayson Tatum on your team, and no matter what, he's going to make your team better. End of story. Like, there's nothing else needs to be taken into account there.
So let me ask you this then.
Yeah.
Who's the better all-time player, Steph Curry or Kevin Durant?
So, because I honestly, I honestly think Kevin Durant is a better player than Steph Curry, but he does have. It's the weirdo legacy thing, though, because that's never. No one is ever going to make that argument, though, because Steph Curry did it, quote unquote, the right way, right? And Kevin Durant is telling fans his things to settle down. It's not that serious. Don't watch the team.
he's telling Brooklyn Nets cast to pop a bean and chill out.
Yeah, he said touch grass to his fans, basically, which is amazing. No, I mean, I don't know, like, because. It's so hard with Steph Curry because, on the one hand, though, Steph Curry also, like, dropping the bit momentarily. He did drive the greatest team of all time. You know what I'm saying? The problem with Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant was also on the greatest team of all time, and then we end up rehashing that debate again, like of what defines it, and what all that stuff is. I do think that's a lot closer than people say. I think Steph has been so deified, you can't really have a rational argument about that, especially because someone like Durant has been sort of dragged, they're opposite sides of the reputational standpoint. You know what I'm saying? Steph being unimpeachable and Durant being like, oh, he tied his wagon to Kyrie, he left OKC, he went and he ruined my beautiful league for 3 years going to the Warriors, So,
even though Steph did benefit from that a little bit too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that argument is a lot closer than people. I think Steph will probably end up in most conversations being higher than Durant.
I think Steph is higher. I have Steph top 10. I have Durant like 15 range, whatever. But yeah. So, but back to your MVP conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I feel like, and this is the thing, and this has nothing to do with Steph Curry.
Mm-hmm.
This has nothing to do with Jayson Tatum.
Mm-hmm.
Because I actually, like, if I were to sit down and look at the stats and, also keep in mind, people will say it's a regular season award. It is. But then when Giannis doesn't win the finals, he doesn't get the award. He's not in the consideration for the award because he lost in the finals. And maybe Jayson Tatum's experiencing a little bit of this because we saw his worst playoff series at the highest stage last year.
Right.
And Steph Curry was Steph Curry. He was maybe his best playoff series we've ever seen. And he's also statistically better and carrying in a way that he hasn't done in so long that I understand the argument. But I do think, and look, maybe I would pick Steph, maybe I would pick Tatum. I definitely think they're 1 and 2 right now if you were to sit down and have that discussion. But my whole thing is, at a certain point, MVP became less about, and maybe this is just me being a little bit of a bitter Sixers fan, but at a certain point, MVP became less about who's the best player on the best team, and it became more about who does the most carrying. Because that's what we saw with Jokic last year.
Yes.
And he was amazing statistically, and advanced stats dominated, and the on-offs were crazy.
We've made this joke. We made this joke about that the Nuggets, once their guys got hurt, they built a team that was designed to be an MVP vehicle.
Sure.
Like, because that's what you make your team bad in order to carry. Like, that's kind of always what it's been,
And that's less my argument with the MVP, and it's more my argument against considering advanced stats the one and only thing. Because I've said this before, I feel like when it comes to MVP, people go to EPM, BPM, whatever stat you want, and they see, well, Luka and Steph are at the top of those, so they're 1 and 2 for MVP, right?
Right.
And it's like, well, they have to do the most for their teams, because their teams are shitty. And I do think that even though it is a regular season award, you have to take into consideration that, this is where maybe the Embiid argument falls a little bit flat on its face, where you have to take into consideration that team, in my opinion, has to have a chance to win a title that season if you're going to consider the person the most valuable player in the NBA.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, then maybe the Embiid argument doesn't have a case against Jokic last year because Embiid's team flamed out in the playoffs. Part of it, maybe it was he was injured. Part of it is maybe he's just not good enough. The team's not good enough.
Yeah.
The other side of this is that if you are coming at it from Tatum's perspective, I am of the mindset that, and maybe this is a little bit Doomer Sixers fan of me, but I am of the mindset that I think the Celtics are going to cakewalk in a way that is going to surprise a lot of people. I think that the Celtics are built to win in the playoffs. I think that they have the number one offense right now. They're missing one of their most important defensive players in Rob Williams, and he also helps their offense too.
Yeah.
So if he's healthy and everyone has relative health for the Celtics, I think that we could see maybe not a cakewalk to the title, but I think that they're going to have an easier time in the Eastern Conference than people think, despite the Eastern Conference being way better. And I think that if you are arguing on behalf of Tatum and you're just arguing on that is your best argument, is that he's the best player on probably the team that will at least get to the finals, if not win the finals.
Yeah. I mean, like I've been saying the whole time that what doomed the Celtics, why the Celtics look bad against the Warriors is because they went through the Bucks in the second round in rat mode. Like, and they're not going to have to do that this year. It looks like, knock on wood, like if they end up seeing just the Bucks in the finals, they're going to do it. And, on the other side of the coin, the Warriors are not going to get to play the Grizzlies and the nobody Nuggets. But anyway, like, I guess my bigger point here about kind of MVP, because this is my first time going into the MVP thing,
Psychosis.
Yeah, the psychosis. You guys, Sixers fans are well accustomed to this.
Yeah,
And,
2 straight years.
Yeah, and I am fighting the calculator rat battle where this is like Stalingrad, where I'm stepping over your guys' corpses and picking up your weapons to carry on the fight in your place and charging. So,
but the main difference is that Steph Curry is bulletproof, like you said, because Steph Curry is already one of the 10 best players of all time.
This is one of the hardest things to do because Steph Curry is one of the biggest, and we're also up against, instead of a Denver media apparatus of nerds that nobody likes, we're up against Warriors.
Austin has no media influence at all.
No, we don't. Well, everyone hates us, correctly so. So there's a pushback. Everyone's sick of hearing. Nobody wants good things to happen to Boston anywhere. Are you fucking kidding me? Like like this is like crying about the Patriots doing bad. Nobody wants to hear that shit. Like fuck you.
First, Pearl Jam.
My first Pearl Jam. But I guess my thing is, I think the advanced stats are not the catch-all everybody thinks either, too, because like the other thing with the advanced stats is it's like there's a huge difference between having like fucking Dante DiVincenzo coming in for you and fucking Malcolm Brogdon coming in for you. And that's, the impact is always going to be bigger, and there is so many like advanced stats, and I get it because that's, this I'm going into a more macro discussion about just the way we talk about basketball now is because when you're talking to someone and you disagree, nerds, STEM people, their immediate response is, I need to prove this with numbers. Sure. And that is what the analytics community has been trying to do, has been trying to solve basketball, which is inherently an organic game, which is why I love it so much. It is not baseball. It is not, which is full of set events that, don't chain or link together. A pitch happens and like 4 different outcomes happen and that's it. Like this is something that is living and breathing. Decisions are being made. How guys play together, how much guys trust each other, all that stuff matters. And it's very hard to quantify. And I do think the analytics community is getting better at it, and it's not to say it's, a waste of time or anything like that. But it's also like, we've also got to remember how much junk there is
Daryl Morey is the original calculator rat, and he says all front-facing public metrics suck.
Yeah.
He said, like, on the record, like, if you don't have your own data, you probably shouldn't even listen to it, basically. And you can explain your own data.
Right. And I believe in that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think there would be no reason to have that. And I think that's, but now we're also getting into the other thing of, the calculator rat ecosystem, where you also need to, if you are a calculator rat and you want to get hired by a front office, you have to find something different.
Sure.
You have to create something different. And, that can lead to some like weird mutations and people pushing weird, things that, some might be good, some might be bad. But I think in general, we need to be a little bit more skeptical of that stuff and trust a little bit more about, but then the other thing is, if we don't have analytics and we don't have numbers, how do we talk about who's better, and it's impossible. Like, try to talk about, without saying a number, try to talk about who's better, Steph Curry or Luka Doncic.
It is tough. I mean, I've tried to rely more on eye test, but we're only human beings and we can't watch every single game of every single team in the NBA. And sometimes you have to rely on things that you're not, which is why I like having guests like we had on with Trey, where like he can literally come on and be like, hey, here's how it is with the team. And instead of, oh, well, Andre Drummond's DEPM is really bad. And it's like, well, is it really that? Or is it just like, maybe this metric doesn't mean as much as we thought it did. But your argument is a bit more like what we had the first year Embiid was MVP, when before Jokic came out of nowhere, it was him versus LeBron. Right. And it was really tough to argue against LeBron because LeBron is the greatest player of all time, maybe. And Joel Embiid was still, entering his prime and was the best player on the best team, but they weren't the best team by a wide margin. the team was pretty good around him. It wasn't obviously built for the playoffs, but in the regular season, it was pretty decent. Even his on-off numbers were incredible. His analytics were incredible. All the same stuff that we're talking about right now. But I think that what this all comes back to for me is that it is borderline psychotic to have a MVP podcast in not us, but like Zach's podcast, where Zach had, and even Bill Simmons made fun of him. He was like, "You're being Bristolized." Like having an MVP discussion in November for the top 5 MVP candidates after we've played, I think it was like 18 games at the time or something. Not even a quarter of the season had passed. Let's see how things go, because guys get injured, guys regress. Let's see how we're looking at it by the time the trade deadline comes around, because that's really where you can be like, okay, we have a larger sample. Yeah. We can see both teams' records. I know you're getting all worked up about it, but I would be pretty surprised if Jayson Tatum stays healthy. I think that he's probably going to end up in the driver's seat, only due to the fact that, like, and look, I'm the number one Steph guy. Like, I've probably argued for Steph as maybe even the best player in the NBA over the last few years, even over Giannis sometimes. And I think that if he keeps this up, it's going to be hard to deny because the turnovers are down. The shooting is incredible still.
If they end up top 4, he'll probably get it.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's
everything behind him.
Yes, yeah.
But if you guys go on, so it's either going to go one of two ways. If he stays healthy and continues on this insane streak, then yeah, maybe he'll win. But if you guys are the undeniable 1 seed and you win 65 games, and Jayson Tatum is very clearly the best player on that team, even though like they did win without him last night, I believe, or 2 nights ago.
2 nights ago.
Yeah,
the game I went to. So
sure, great,
yeah,
good.
It was delightful. I was very excited. If I hadn't told the story on the pod, my sister got me a Christmas present. Go ahead to a Celtics game. Very sweet, very nice. She said she got me a rivalry game ticket, and I was so excited. I was like, okay, Miami Heat, Bucks. This is awesome. Thank you so much, sister. I love you. It was a Washington Wizards game because she remembers back in the day me going absolutely insane when Kelly Olynyk had the games. And just tearing the house apart and going, and I'm just like, I gotta, it's like,
she's a great sister.
Wow, this is it. This is the game of the year. And I show up and like Jayson Tatum isn't playing. No Kuzma either. We didn't even get the reenactment of the Kuzma, the Lakers insider. Do you remember the Lakers insider graphic with Kuzma and Tatum? Yeah, we didn't even get that reaction, but it was a really fun game. They scored 70 points in the first half.
I was gonna say they ran them off the fucking court, but I still think that I think it's probably going to come down to, maybe someone comes out of nowhere a little bit. Maybe the Mavs bounce back and Luke is in the conversation too. But I think that it's going to come down to those two, and it really just comes down to how good the Warriors are. Like you said, Steph has all the stuff on his side, but it's also like you're always one run away in the playoffs where, like, I know the Celtics got to the finals last year, but because Tatum played so poorly, if you guys win the finals next year, it would be shocking if you win the finals this year and then next year Jayson Tatum does not win MVP. Like, that's usually how these things kind of work, where like we reward people maybe a little bit late even for their performance. But I don't know. I think these are going to be fine.
It cost LeBron a championship. He should. That was why he lost that. Was it that? No, I guess they hadn't lost to the Mavericks yet, but he did.
The MVP in 2011 when he lost to Derrick Rose.
Yeah,
that was just a bit more like fatigue.
That was the Miami.
Right? Yeah.
I guess that wasn't really a Mavericks loss, because that would have been the other thing. Did he win the next year?
No, everyone hated LeBron because he went to Miami and did the decision. That was why.
Who won the year after Derrick Rose? Was it LeBron again?
2011?
2012? Or?
Oh, no, 2012.
Yeah. No, that was Derrick. It was 2011. So 2012 MVP was LeBron, So he did win the year after having that oopsie in the against the Mavs. But
well, there really aren't those MVPs anymore either. Like, we can't even rank. Like, they're like, and Derrick. By the way, Derrick Rose was an amazing player when he had that 1 year, but like he was not the best player in the NBA, and he wasn't even like. It
really does seem like the league is just like insanely fucking talented here. Yeah. I can't remember guys like all last year. It was like Embiid, Jokic, Giannis, there's
Sure.
all of those guys are totally washed out, and there's just a totally new top three. When does that ever fucking happen? It is crazy, the talent in the league right now. By the way,
you have 9 MVP level players in the NBA.
There's guys like that who can just win on a dime. By the way, analytics are back. Kevin at NBA Couchside just posted his most recent stable player impact metric.
Oh, we love that one. Yeah,
it's the best one. I've always said this because Jayson Tatum is at the top of it. So that's the only good. That's the only good analytic. Shout out to Couchside. That's the only one I endorse.
Yeah.
So shout out to Kevin, Bulls fan. This is a Bulls podcast. He's created the perfect metric. What can I say? Unless he's going to be on top of it next week, in which case I will destroy him.
In which case we're gonna have to. Shame's gonna have to do an investigation.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm going to audit the stable player metric next week if Jayson Tatum remain on top of it. But for now, it's the only good metric, the only ethical metric. I've always loved it. It's perfect.
Well, and I'm not even dissing this metric because I know the person who made it, and the LeBron metric that everyone likes to make fun of because of the name of it. But Caruso, I believe his name is, from Twitter, or I'm sorry. Oh, it's K Naruso. It's like KNARSU. I think I can't remember his first name. But long story short, very good guy. He did this analytic for LeBron, and it actually showed in the playoffs that Joel Embiid, because his on-offs were so good, that Joel Embiid was the most impactful playoff player of the last 25 years other than LeBron James. And I was like, holy shit. So I was using this all the time. And I was like, have you seen this metric that says that Embiid, and then he had the injury playoffs this past year, and it fucked up his amazing on-offs, and he dropped like 50 spots. So I was like, all right, well, I can't use that anymore. So it's really just about how I'm feeling on that day is what I'm trying to say. If the stat says he's good, then he's good. So
yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
Anything else?
So no, I just wanted to properly credit so Christian Narsu, KNARSU.
I was mashing his name together.
Yeah. At KNARSU3. So
yes, T-ball index.
Yes, so plugging him for his LeBron metric, unless Embiid stays at the bottom of it, in which case that will also be purged from our endorsements.
Actually, Sam was checking off the air there to see where Tatum versus Steph were.
Well, Jonathan just said in chat, Jokic is still on top of the B-ball reference MVP tracker. So now I have to lead a crusade against Basketball Reference headquarters. I will be doing a hostile takeover. I'm doing Elon Musk style. I'm going to sell all of my Tesla stock, and I'm going to buy Basketball Reference, and I'm going to fire all of them, try and send them out. Loving Tatum is legal on Twitter again.
It's very sad, folks. It is incredible because I was like, how is that possible? Jokic is averaging less points than he's averaged in like 4 years. And I looked it up, and he's averaging 23 points, and that is true, which is the least that he's had since before his MVP season. But he is shooting 62% from the field.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible.
It's kind of what you want when your two high volume scorer guys come back, is for efficiency to go up while you take a slight dip in points per game.
Anyway, it's a fraudulent metric.
Yeah, it's fraudulent. Yeah, the Jokic. I'm just gonna start doing the Zach thing he used to dismiss Jokic, dismiss Giannis. Like, you can't win 3 in a year. Like, hey, if you win 3 in a row, here's the list of guys who have won 3 in a row.
It's literally just Larry Bird, right? I think that was it. It was just Bird.
I think there was like Russell, Wilt, and Bird. I think.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Is I think
he's like the only one post merger that's
right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
All right, that's a good place to end it. That was a lot of fun.